AITA for taking back husband privileges after my girlfriend said I was just her boyfriend? I'm Benjamin, 34, and by the time this happened, Emily and I had been together long enough that my phone calendar had her dentist appointment, her car service reminder, and our lease renewal deadline sitting right next to my own bills. I wasn't trying to rush her into anything. I just thought we were building something real, the kind of relationship where two adults stop acting single whenever responsibility shows up. At first, Emily was exactly the kind of person I admired. She was quick, funny, and confident in a way that made every room bend toward her. She could walk into a coffee shop, a friend's apartment, or a family dinner and make herself comfortable before most people had even decided where to sit. She had opinions. She had standards. She talked about independence like it was something sacred, and I respected that. I didn't want a relationship where I monitored someone. I didn't ask for passwords. I didn't complain whenever she had male friends. I didn't act like every late reply was evidence of betrayal. Emily had been clear early on that she hated feeling boxed in, and I told myself that patience was part of loving someone who had been disappointed before. The problem was that her independence always seemed to need my support system underneath it. It started small enough to ignore. She would forget to send her half for groceries, then smile and say, "I'll get you next time," while putting away the snacks she picked. She would borrow my car because hers was making that sound again, then return it with the gas light glowing like a tiny orange accusation. She would say she had already called the utility company, and then 2 days later I would be the one on hold listening to the same 30-second piano loop because the bill was still unresolved. None of those things felt big enough to start a fight over. That was part of the trap. One unpaid grocery run sounds petty. One empty gas tank sounds petty. One utility call sounds petty. But after a while, petty starts looking like a pattern. I did bring it up. Calmly. More than once. One night, I was standing in the kitchen looking at a utility email on my phone while Emily sat at the counter scrolling through hers. There was a car repair estimate beside her coffee mug. She had circled something in pen and written "Ask Ben" next to it. I said, "Can we talk about splitting things more clearly? Not because I'm mad. I just don't want everything informal until it becomes my responsibility." She didn't look up right away. Everything is not your responsibility. I'm not saying everything. I'm saying enough that I'm noticing. That made her sigh like I had asked her to sign a confession. "Benjamin, we're not married," she said. I remember staring at her because the sentence didn't match the situation. I hadn't asked her to be my wife. I had asked her to pay her part of the electric bill. "I know we're not married," I said. "I'm asking you to send me the money you said you'd send." She turned her phone face down. "This is exactly what I mean. You get so heavy about everything. It makes me feel trapped." That word, trapped, always ended the conversation. Nobody wants to be the person trapping someone. So I backed off, even when backing off meant doing the thing myself. The same pattern showed up with Jake. Jake was Emily's close friend. He had been around before me, and I didn't want to be the insecure boyfriend who made that a problem. Jake was casual in a way that sounded harmless if you didn't listen too closely. He called everyone man. He gave advice like he had no stake in anything. He laughed a little too loudly at Emily's jokes and always seemed available when she needed to vent after a disagreement with me. Sometimes I would see his name flash across her phone late at night. I never grabbed it. I never demanded to read anything. But I did ask once, while we were folding laundry, "Is everything okay with Jake? I've just noticed you two have been talking a lot more at night." Emily tossed one of my shirts at me. "Secure men don't ask questions like that." "I'm not asking who you can talk to," I said. "I'm asking why every concern I have becomes insecurity." She smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. "Because secure men don't act like this." It was hard to argue with someone who turned every boundary into a personality flaw. If I asked about money, I was controlling. If I asked about Jake, I was insecure. If I asked where we were going as a couple, I was pressuring her. But when she needed me, suddenly I wasn't some overbearing boyfriend. I was her partner, her emergency contact, her ride, her problem solver, the person who just knew how to handle stuff. I started to feel like I was a boyfriend when she wanted freedom, a husband when she wanted stability, and a stranger when she owed me accountability. Still, I loved her. Or at least I loved the version of us I thought we were building. The lease brought everything into focus. Our current lease was coming up for renewal, and the apartment office had sent an email with a deadline. There was a different unit available in the same complex, a little better laid out, with more storage and a small balcony. Emily loved it. She stood in the empty living room during the walkthrough and said, "This feels more adult, doesn't it?" I remember feeling hopeful when she said that. Not because I needed a ring on her finger the next day. I just wanted some sign that she saw us as a real unit, not two people temporarily sharing furniture and passwords. The office needed a holding deposit to keep the unit from going back on the market. Emily had been excited for 3 days, sending me screenshots of furniture and asking whether the couch would fit against the longer wall. Then when the actual payment came up, she became vague. "I'm slammed this week," she said, standing by the fridge with her phone in one hand and a yogurt in the other. "Can you just cover it for now? I'll send my part later." "Are you sure you're in?" I asked. She gave me that look like I had made something simple unpleasant. "I'm basically in." Basically in is not the same as in. "Why do you always have to make things heavy?" she said. "We can't lose it over timing." So I paid it. The deposit receipt came to my email with my name on it, my card, my confirmation number. I saved it in a folder because I'm organized, not because I expected to need evidence. A few days later, Rachel accidentally sent a screenshot to the wrong group chat. Rachel was Emily's best friend and the kind of person who treated every conflict like it needed an audience. She was funny when she liked you and dangerous when she didn't. Her Instagram stories were always vague enough to deny, but specific enough for the right person to feel hit. I had never had a serious problem with her, but I always got the sense she saw me as an obstacle between Emily and the version of Emily she preferred. The group chat had maybe 8 people in it. Nothing dramatic usually happened there. Dinner plans, memes, someone complaining about traffic, someone asking who had a charger. That afternoon, my phone buzzed while I was making coffee. Rachel had dropped a screenshot into the chat. It was up for less than a minute. But that was enough. At the top of the screenshot, Emily had written, "Benjamin thinks we're basically married because he paid 1 deposit." Someone else in the smaller chat had asked, "Are you actually signing the new lease with him?" Emily replied, "I mean, it's convenient for now." I took a screenshot of the screenshot before it disappeared. Rachel deleted it, then sent, "Wrong chat lol, ignore that." Nobody responded for a while. My coffee maker kept dripping like nothing had happened. I stood there holding my phone and felt something in me go very still. Not angry yet. Not loud. Just still. Emily came into the kitchen a few minutes later. I think she already knew. Her phone was in her hand, and her face had that bright, careful expression people wear when they're trying to get ahead of damage. "Rachel is so messy," she said. She sent something out of context. I looked at her. "Did you say the lease was convenient for now?" She rolled her eyes. "It was a joke." "Did you say I think we're basically married because I paid 1 deposit?" "Benjamin, you're acting like I cheated." I made a joke. "Do you understand how it feels to learn I'm convenient from a screenshot?" That annoyed her more than it hurt her. "You are reading it in the worst possible way," she said. "I'm allowed to process things with my friends. Processing is different from mocking me. See? This is what I mean. Everything becomes a courtroom with you." I almost let that work. I almost started defending my tone instead of staying with the facts. Then she glanced at the car repair estimate on the counter and said, "Can you still call the mechanic today? I really don't want them overcharging me." That was the moment the contradiction stopped being subtle. I actually laughed once. Not because it was funny, because my brain needed somewhere to put the disbelief. She frowned. "What? You just told me I'm dramatic for being hurt that you called me convenient. Now you want me to handle your mechanic because you trust me not to get taken advantage of." That is such a dramatic way to describe me asking for help. "I'm not asking you to be my wife," I said. "I'm asking you not to treat me like a landlord you kiss sometimes." Her face changed. Wow. I didn't say anything else. I knew if I kept talking, I would end up in the same loop. She would call me controlling. I would explain myself. She would say I was too intense. I would apologize for the volume of my own reaction while the actual problem sat untouched in the middle of the room. That night, Rachel posted an Instagram story that said, "Some men think paying rent makes them kings." No names. No context. Just enough. I didn't respond. I didn't post anything. I didn't text the group chat. I sent the screenshot to Chris. Chris was my closest friend and one of the few people who could be blunt without making me feel stupid. We met the next evening for takeout at his place. I showed him the screenshot, the lease deposit email, and a few texts where Emily had used "were not married," like a fire extinguisher anytime responsibility caught. He read quietly. Then he put my phone down. "You already know what this is," he said. "I know what it looks like." "No, you know what it is. You just don't want to feel like the guy who gives up." I rubbed my hands over my face. Part of me still thinks maybe I'm making it bigger than it is. Chris leaned back. "A stranger can forget to pay you back once. A partner can be overwhelmed sometimes. But somebody who takes your stability, mocks you for providing it, and then sends you back to do errands for her? That is not confusion. I don't want to punish her." "You don't have to punish her," he said. "You just have to stop rewarding the behavior." That line sat with me all night. The next morning, I didn't make any big moves. I watched. Emily acted sweet. Not apologetic. Sweet. There's a difference. She made coffee for both of us and put my mug near my laptop like we were fine. She touched my shoulder when she passed behind me. She asked what I wanted for dinner. Then she mentioned the lease paperwork like nothing had happened. "The office sent a correction page," she said. "They need initials on one of the forms. Can you print it?" My laptop is open already. It should be in downloads. I looked at her for a second longer than usual. She had one earbud in and was searching for something in her bag. "What?" "Nothing," I said. Her laptop was open on the kitchen counter. The lease PDF preview was already on the screen. I wasn't snooping through her files. I clicked downloads, found the correction page, and sent it to the printer. Then a message notification popped up in the corner. "Rachel, did he sign yet?" I froze. The message thread was visible behind the notification because the app was open in the background. I did not scroll. I did not search. I did not open anything that wasn't already sitting there on the screen. But what was visible was enough. "Emily, I need him to lock it in first. Then I can figure out what I really want without scrambling. Jake, let him sign first. Then you'll have options." "Rachel, exactly. Don't let him make this some big commitment thing before you know." The printer started humming from the other room. I stood there with my hand on the edge of the counter, staring at that sentence. "Then you'll have options." It was such a small word for such an ugly thing. Options meant I wasn't her partner. I was her safety net while she looked at the floor below and decided whether she wanted to jump. Options meant Jake knew. Rachel knew. Emily knew. The only person treating the lease like a commitment was the person paying to secure it. I took one photo of the visible screen with my phone. I did not scroll for more. I did not touch the messages. I closed the laptop and picked up the printed page. When Emily came back in, I handed it to her. "Thanks," she said, cheerful and easy. "No problem." I don't think she noticed anything. That almost made it worse. For the first time, I didn't want to win an argument. I wanted to remove myself from the argument entirely. I spent that evening going through what was actually in my name. Not emotionally. Practically. The holding deposit was in my name. The apartment portal had my card. The new lease was not fully executed because the final signatures and correction initials were still pending. The electric account was in my name, with Emily informally sending me her half whenever she remembered or whenever I reminded her twice. The internet was mine. Most streaming accounts were mine. There was a phone add-on under my account because Emily's plan had been too expensive a few months earlier, and she had promised to send the difference. There was a storage payment linked to my card because she wanted extra space for seasonal things and a few boxes she said she would sort soon. There was a weekend reservation in my name for a little trip she had pushed for because we needed to reconnect. I also found the Venmo requests I had drafted and never sent. Groceries March. Groceries April. Utilities difference. Gas. Car repair estimate deposit. I had left them sitting there because I didn't want to be petty. Looking at them together, they didn't look petty. They looked like a quiet second rent. I emailed the apartment office that night. I kept it simple. I asked whether the renewal and transfer were binding yet, since not all final signatures and correction initials had been completed. I asked what the deadline was to withdraw my participation without being added to the new agreement. I also asked for confirmation in writing. The lease manager replied the next morning. Neutral. Procedural. No drama. The new lease had not been fully executed. If I wanted to withdraw, I needed to do so in writing by the end of the business day. The holding deposit terms were separate, but I would not be a party to the new lease unless final signatures were completed. So I withdrew. I wrote one clean email confirming I was withdrawing from the renewal and would not be signing the correction page or final lease. I asked them to remove my card from the new unit portal. I saved the reply confirming receipt. Then I handled everything else that belonged to me. I canceled the weekend reservation. The cancellation email came in at 9:42 a.m. I changed the passwords on the streaming accounts I paid for. I removed the phone add-on from my account at the end of the billing cycle and sent Emily the carrier's notice so she had time to set up her own plan. I removed my card from the storage payment and forwarded her the storage company's email explaining what needed to happen if she wanted to keep the unit. I sent one Zelle request and one Venmo request with boring, factual notes. Groceries March/April. Utilities difference. Car repair estimate deposit. Phone add-on balance. No insults. No speeches. Just numbers. Then I texted Emily. You were right. We're not married. So from today on, I'm only responsible for myself. The call started 3 minutes later. I didn't answer the first one. Or the second. On the third, she left a voicemail. Benjamin, what the hell? The office just emailed me asking if I'm still proceeding alone. What did you do? I listened once, then saved it. The text came in fast. You don't get to just pull the floor out from under me. This is financial punishment. You're proving exactly why I was scared to commit. You're acting like I cheated. Then Rachel appeared in the group chat. Rachel, so we're just cutting off support now because women don't move fast enough? Red flag behavior. Jake followed almost immediately. Jake, man, relationships aren't spreadsheets. If you loved her, you wouldn't keep score. I stared at that one for a while. Then I typed, then stop asking me to pay the invoices. I deleted it. Not because it wasn't true, because I knew they wanted a fight. A fight would let them say I was angry, controlling, unstable, punishing Emily for not being ready. I had spent too many months trying to defend myself inside a frame someone else built. So I sent one message to Emily directly. I did not cancel anything you own or pay for. I withdrew from commitments that were in my name before they became final. Future logistics can be handled in writing. Then I muted the group chat. Emily still found ways to make noise. She sent a long message that night saying I had embarrassed her with the lease office. She said she had been confused and needed space, and that I had used money to force an answer. She said I had weaponized responsibility. I remember that phrase because it sounded like Rachel had edited it. I wanted to reply to every line. I wanted to send the photo of the laptop screen right then and ask how much space she needed to figure out what she really wanted after I signed. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I built a timeline. Not a dramatic one. Dates, receipts, screenshots, amounts, the lease email deadline, the holding deposit receipt, Rachel's mistaken screenshot, the apartment office's confirmation that the lease wasn't final, the message notification from Rachel, and the visible thread showing Jake's advice. A list of things I had paid for and what Emily had agreed to cover. Chris looked at it and said, "Receipts are not revenge. Receipts are what you bring when someone lies about the bill." 2 days later, Emily asked for a talk. Not privately. Of course not. She said a few mutual friends were concerned and thought it would be healthier to clear the air in person. The message was written like she was inviting me into a balanced conversation, but the group chat had already been warmed up with her version. I was cold. I was punitive. I was trying to scare her into commitment. I was punishing her for not being ready to get married. I almost said no. Chris said, "You don't owe them a trial. But if they're going to judge the case, they need the evidence." So I went. It was a quiet coffee shop on a weekday evening. Nothing cinematic. No dramatic entrance. No crowded room going silent. Just 6 people at a table too small for the amount of tension on it. Coffee cups. Phones face down. Rachel sitting beside Emily like counsel for the defense. Jake leaning back with one ankle on his knee, trying to look calm and above it all. Chris sat beside me and said almost nothing. Emily looked confident at first. She had that soft, hurt expression that made people lean toward her. "I didn't want this to become a group thing," she said. That was almost impressive, considering she had made it one. "I just feel like Benjamin reacted in a way that was really extreme," she continued. "I said something badly, okay. I was confused. But he pulled out of the lease, canceled plans, cut off accounts, and sent me payment requests like I'm some stranger." Rachel nodded. "It's financial punishment. That's what bothers me. Like, she didn't say yes to being your wife, so you yanked support." Jake added, "Man, if you loved her, you wouldn't keep score." I let all of them finish. That was the part they didn't expect. Usually, I would start explaining too soon. I would argue some small piece of it, and then they would drag me into the weeds. This time, I waited until the silence became uncomfortable. Then I took a folded timeline from my jacket pocket and placed it on the table. Since everyone has an opinion, I said, let's use the full story. Emily's expression shifted. What is that? She asked. A timeline. Rachel scoffed. That's not normal. Neither is building a public narrative from half the facts, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I opened the folder on my phone and started with the screenshot Rachel had accidentally sent. I read Emily's line out loud. Benjamin thinks we're basically married because he paid one deposit. Nobody spoke. Then I read the next part. Are you actually signing the new lease with him? I mean, it's convenient for now. One of our mutual friends, Maya, looked at Emily. Did you say that? Emily crossed her arms. It was taken out of context. I nodded once. That's what you said at home. So here's more context. I showed the deposit receipt in my name. The lease renewal email with the deadline. The apartment office email confirming the new lease had not been fully executed and that I withdrew before the deadline. Then I showed a few messages where Emily had used "we're not married" when I asked about shared costs. I didn't include anything intimate. Nothing cruel. Nothing designed to humiliate her beyond the truth of what had happened. Rachel interrupted. This is obsessive. Chris finally spoke. No. Obsessive would be making vague posts so strangers agree with you without facts. Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. Jake shook his head. Still, relationships aren't transactions. I looked at him. Then why did you advise her on how to keep me financially locked in before she decided what she wanted? His face changed just slightly. Emily went pale. I opened the photo from the laptop screen and turned my phone so they could see it. I didn't pass it around. I just showed enough. Rachel, did he sign yet? Emily, I need him to lock it in first. Then I can figure out what I really want without scrambling. Jake, let him sign first. Then you'll have options. The table went quiet in a way I can still feel when I think about it. Even the espresso machine behind the counter seemed too loud. Maya looked at Emily again. Did you actually plan to let him sign first? Emily didn't answer right away. She looked at Rachel, then at Jake, then at me. That's not fair, she said. I was under pressure. Maya's voice was careful. That's not what I asked. Emily's eyes filled, but it didn't land the way she expected. I was confused. Everyone acts like I was scheming, but I was trying to protect myself. I said, pressure does not make you use someone. It just reveals who you think is acceptable to use. She snapped then. You're making me look bad. That was the closest I came to losing my calm. No, I said. You made me look stupid for months. I'm just refusing to keep playing the role. Jake leaned forward. Come on, man. I turned to him. You told her to let me sign first, so she'd have options. If you believed she needed stability that badly, why didn't you offer to sign something? Cover something? Be the option? He looked away. I'm not getting dragged into couple stuff. The laugh that came out of Chris was short and humorless. Emily heard it too. Her face twisted with embarrassment, not regret. Rachel tried one more time. Okay, but cutting off accounts overnight is still controlling. Support requires consent from the person giving it, I said. I withdrew mine. Emily stared at me. So that's it. You're just done. I looked at her for a long second. The strange thing was, I didn't feel powerful. I felt tired. Tired of asking someone to treat me with basic respect and being told that the request itself was the problem. You wanted boyfriend freedom and husband benefits, I said. I'm done paying for both. Then I stood up. Emily said my name once, sharp and low, like a warning. I didn't sit back down. Anything logistical can be in writing, I said. I'm not doing this in the group chat anymore. Chris left with me. Outside, he didn't celebrate. He just walked beside me to my car and said, that was cleaner than they deserved. I sat in the driver's seat for a minute before starting the engine. My hands were steady, but my chest hurt. There is a specific kind of grief that comes from realizing someone didn't misunderstand your love. They understood it well enough to use it efficiently. The aftermath was not dramatic in the way people imagine. Emily didn't beg on her knees. I didn't get a parade of apologies. Some friends stayed quiet because it was easier than admitting they had helped pressure the wrong person. A couple of them messaged me privately. Maya wrote, I'm sorry. I didn't know the lease thing was like that. Another friend sent, that coffee shop was awkward as hell, but you weren't wrong. Rachel deleted the story about men thinking rent made them kings. She didn't apologize. She just stopped posting about it once people had receipts instead of vibes. Jake disappeared the second Emily needed actual help. I know that because Emily told me. Not in those exact words, but close. 3 days after the coffee shop, she texted, "Funny how everyone has opinions until I actually need help figuring out where to live." I didn't answer. A few hours later, she sent, "Jake says he doesn't want to get dragged into couple stuff." Can you believe that? I believed it easily. The apartment office gave Emily the option to proceed alone if she qualified or let the unit go. I don't know which one she chose. I didn't ask. The storage company emailed both of us once because my card had been removed and her contact info was on file. I forwarded it to her and wrote, "This is yours if you want to keep it." She replied, "You sound like a robot." Maybe I did, but sounding warm had gotten me used. I gave Emily a written window to collect anything that belonged to her. Not a dramatic deadline, not a threat, just a clear set of times when I would be home and she could pick up her things. I packed her books, a small box of kitchen stuff, 2 jackets, some skincare from the bathroom cabinet, and the framed print she had bought at a weekend market. I did not throw anything outside. I did not hold anything hostage. I took photos of the boxes because by then I had learned that documentation was quieter than trust and sometimes safer. She came on a Saturday afternoon. For a moment, when she stood in the doorway, I saw the Emily I had fallen for. Hair pulled back, oversized sweatshirt. No audience. No Rachel. No Jake. Just her, looking smaller than she usually let herself look. "Are you really not going to talk to me?" she asked. "We're talking. You know what I mean." I leaned against the wall near the entryway. "I'm not doing another conversation where you try to rename what happened until it sounds harmless." Her eyes flashed. I was scared. "I believe you." That seemed to catch her off guard. "I do," I said. "I believe you were scared of being trapped. I believe you were unsure. I believe you wanted time." None of that required using me as a backup plan while laughing about it with people who don't pay your bills. She looked down at the boxes. "I didn't think you'd just cut everything off." "That was the problem," I said. She swallowed. "I thought you loved me." "I did. That's why it took me so long to stop making excuses." She picked up one of the boxes, then set it down again. "So what, that's it? You don't even want closure?" "I have closure." "You have receipts," she said bitterly. Same thing, in this case. She looked like she wanted to say something sharp, but without an audience, it had nowhere to land. She took her things in 2 trips. I helped carry one box to her car because it was heavy and because I wasn't trying to become cruel, just to prove I was done. When she turned to leave, she said, "You know, one day you're going to realize relationships can't be managed like accounts." I nodded. "And one day you're going to realize people are allowed to close accounts they never agreed to keep funding." That was the last real conversation we had. After that, I kept everything boring. Payment requests stayed factual. If she disputed something, I sent the receipt. If she sent paragraphs about how I embarrassed her, I replied once with the timeline and then stopped. I left the group chat. I removed shared calendar reminders one by one. Dentist appointment, car service, lease deadline, weekend reservation. Each little deletion felt strange. Not joyful, just clean. The apartment felt different after her things were gone. Not empty exactly. Quieter. The kind of quiet that makes you realize how much noise you had mistaken for connection. A week later, the carrier sent confirmation that the phone add-on had been removed. The streaming login emails stopped. The storage unit stopped appearing on my bank alerts. The lease folder stayed in my files, but I stopped opening it. Emily sent one final long message near the end of the month. She said I had humiliated her, that I made her look manipulative, that I let everyone judge her during a vulnerable time. She said if I had really loved her, I would have fought for us instead of building a case against her. I read it twice. Then I replied, "I didn't punish you for wanting freedom. I stopped financing the version of freedom that depended on me." I blocked the conversation after that. Not because I hated her, because I knew myself. I knew there was still a part of me that would try to explain it better, softer, one more time, until she found a new angle and I found a new reason to feel guilty. I don't need Emily to admit she was wrong. I don't need Rachel to apologize for the posts. I don't need Jake to confess that he liked being important to her as long as it cost him nothing. People like that usually don't give you closure. They just get quieter when the story stops helping them. What I got back was simpler. My name was no longer on a lease being used as someone else's safety net. My card was no longer quietly holding up somebody else's independence. My calendar no longer looked like a shared life with someone who treated commitment like a trap and convenience like a right. Emily was right about one thing. We were not married. So I stopped acting like a husband she could embarrass for free. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.